This conference will now be recorded.
Last time we were talking about the flow chart, and as part of that, so we discussed about the recruitment process and how the recruitment happened, and so who are all the people who would be involved and that stuff. So we had discussed it. So have you done with the homework or any questions? Any questions regards to the homework or the, the understanding? And I also shared the flow chart that we have prepared to the coordinator. So have you got that flow chart, flow diagram?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, okay, all right. So please start working on it. So pretty much doable easy one. The whole purpose is that so we need to understand the stakeholders for the software application and what is their purpose of using that any application for that fact. So not only this is just an example, right? So with regards to any application, if we can understand who are all the actual users of the system and what is their purpose of using the system, so that understanding, if you get to at least 20% extent, we are good with the understanding of the business need. So when our business comes up with the need, they give us the details that like what is required for them and so on, right? So in order to understand in detail, so obviously the first and foremost thing, we need to ask these questions that who are the users for this system and how exactly each person would be using this system. So if it is already there, if it is not there, so who are the people who would be using it once the application is developed. So once you get that understanding, at least you have a high level overview of what that system is for and how it is going to be used. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay, right. Just give me a moment. Okay. All right. So today we're going to talk about the wireframes. So what are wireframes and how does the wireframes work and what kind of tools that we can use to create the wireframes. We'll have a look at the wireframes one. So to start off with, wireframes are basically the tool that is used to design the web-based applications or websites or the web page. So wireframe is an image or set of images that displays the functional elements of a website or a web page. That displays the functional elements of a website or a web page. The wireframes are an image or set of images which displays the functional elements of a website or web page. A visual representation of an interface. How an interface is nothing but the screen with which the user can interact with the system. How the user can interact with the system, that particular screen would be designed by using the wireframes. So to talk about wireframe, the purpose of the wireframe, before making the visual design, you first make decisions about the structure, content, layout, etc. So ultimately, initial stage of the wireframe is to get the acceptance on the structure of the web page and content layout. So the communicate the structure, content, information, functionality, and behavior of interface. So obviously, by having a web page or web page, so it would be easy to communicate the structure, content with the respective stakeholders. Design tool used in website development activity. So wireframes are tool to communicate the ideas. So what are the possible ways that we can do? Prototype for the usability tests. So from the testing perspective, so these wireframes or the web pages are used as a prototype. Easier to change a wireframe than a final design of the application. So obviously, wireframes gives us the initial flexibility of making the changes. And again, in wireframe we have multiple levels. We have multiple levels. So obviously, when we create the wireframes for the first time, you have a lot of flexibility to make the changes at later point of time. So what exactly a wireframe consists of? Key page elements and their location, header, footer, branding element, the topmost part, the bottommost part, and the branding element, the logo and the name of the bank and all that. Those we call it as the branding elements. Grouping of the elements, sidebars, navigation bars, content areas. So the sidebars, the navigation areas, and the content area. So where you publish the contents and stuff. Labeling, page title and navigation links. So page title and the navigation links to different pages. Placeholder, content, text, and the images are the placeholder. So please do remember that we are not going to put the original content or images here at the initial stage. That's not possible. The reason being, one reason you may not have much clarity around what needs to be published. And the other major reason would be that content may be changing based on your clicks, where the user is going to click on the thing. And maybe so there is a kind of changing set of images that may be published. So that's where at the initial stages of wireframe design, we may not be very much sure of the fixed content. That's when there is no point like keeping the text and images as the original one. So that's why we use a dummy text and dummy images. So that way, so obviously in simplest terms, if I have to tell you, the wireframe consists of whatever the things that you see in a website or a web page, all those things that you see in a wireframe. So all those things that you use in header, top post, footer, branding element, the company logo, and the navigation links to different pages, the text and the images as the placeholder text and the images that you can see in a so that we can see in a wireframe like the web page that is created through wireframe. So when we talk about the wireframes, even before the wireframes, we have something called as sketches. Then in wireframes, we have low fidelity wireframes and high fidelity wireframes. Low-fi stands for low fidelity wireframe, high fidelity wireframes. So when we talk about a sketch is nothing but any freehand drawing that we call it as a sketch. So it is a rapid freehand drawing that we do with no intention of its becoming a finished product. So it is also like a prototype of the design, but not necessary that it would be exactly converted into a final product or the application. So when you talk about the characteristics of the sketch, it is quick enough. Making them does not require long periods of time. Timely, you can create sketches on demand, inexpensive and disposable. Inexpensive and disposable. So sketch is basically any freehand drawing. So with regards to a web page or website or any other thing, so that we call it as a sketch. And when it comes to like why do we do use sketches or wireframe? So basically in order to communicate the ideas or maybe in order to showcase where the problem is. Sketching with clients and teammates helps everyone to stay on the same page. It's basically diagrammatic representation, makes things much easier than textual representation. So when it comes to the wireframes, so the characteristics of the wireframes are also quick enough, but definitely like it's a more structured approach. When you talk about the wireframe, you can't create the way that you create a sketch. So sketch is obviously whatever the image, whatever thing that you can think of. So you can definitely put it in your sketch. But when it comes to the wireframe, it is a more structured one. So that's where it is quick enough, but definitely takes longer than sketches. Inexpensive, obviously there are tools available. So you have free tools also available. You can use any of them to create the wireframes. Viable, wireframes are not as plentiful as sketches, so you should have narrowed your concept down to viable option. When it's a viable, so obviously in terms of the elements that you use in a wireframe. So you can't use all the images, whatever that you can think of in sketches in wireframes. So wireframes have a limited set of elements, so we should be using those elements only. Clear and use of common vocabulary. Wireframes comprise of simple symbols, lines, and indicators. Obviously, like these are similar to like websites. So obviously, whatever the element that you see in a website, so our web page, so the similar elements that you can use in wireframes. Minimally detailed, they're conceptual and suggest the structure. The idea of wireframes is not that that's going to be the final design. That will give the initial design, the structure, how the contents are laid out, the spacing between the elements and all that. And based on that, it will go to the next level where it is much more detailed information. Based on that, it will lead to the final design or the actual implementation. Appropriately refined, they communicate a sense of structure and the layout. So the whole idea is they communicate a sense of structure and the layout. Coming to the wireframe, so you can categorize, as I mentioned, into low fidelity wireframe, and the next one is high fidelity wireframe. Low fidelity wireframe, and the next one is high fidelity wireframe. So when it comes to the low fidelity wireframe, this is considered to be the first stage of visual design. The first stage of visual design. The basic layout that indicates where the various elements are going to appear on the page. The basic layout that indicates where the various elements are going to appear on the page. No color coding is required. Allows the basic layout of the pages to be quickly agreed upon. It allows the basic layout of the pages to be quickly agreed upon. So that way, when you talk about low fidelity wireframe, this is considered to be the first stage of the design. Basic layout that indicates where the various elements are going to appear on the page. No color coding is required. Allows the basic layout of the pages to be quickly agreed upon. It allows the basic layout of it. So the idea is to get the approval on the basic layout, the spacing between the elements, how the various elements are going to be like structured on a web page. This is an example of a low fidelity wireframe. As you see here, you have the logo, you have the navigation buttons to different pages, home, products, about us, contact, and then you have like a placeholder image, and on the left hand side you have the various products that is sold online. Seems to be online e-retailing portal, and the moment you click on something, the image and the corresponding text. So the image and text, obviously the placeholder image and the placeholder text, and share on Twitter, share on Facebook. So if you like the content out here, so you can share on Twitter or Facebook, and the sponsor for this particular website. So this is the layout that gives the initial understanding of how a web page is going to look like. So, so here we haven't used any color coding and all that, the spacing between the element and how the various elements are, what are all the various elements that are showing up here, and the spacing between the elements. That's the whole idea of this low fidelity wireframe. So once we present this low fidelity wireframe, once we get the approval, so then we would move on to the high fidelity wireframe, which is much more detailed wireframe. It describes the content and the behavior. Blueprint for the final design should be understood without explanation. So detailed wireframe, so it has much more detail in terms of the color coding and stuff. So still the images are going to be the placeholder images and text. But by looking at it, it looks mostly like a web page, a real web page. So it describes the content and the behavior. Blueprint for the final design should be understood without explanation. If you look at here, this is an example of a high fidelity wireframe. If you look at this one, this seems to be a online news portal. So obviously your this one, the images and the corresponding text are going to change. There is no point fixing the image or fixing the text. Huge headline and the photo, so obviously the headline would change, or maybe there are maybe 4 or 5 headlines. So based on that, this is a scrolling images, a group of scrolling images. Then similarly, you have different images corresponding respective text for it. And if you see, this is scrolling news, the scrolling news, and then similar to that, you have different images and different text that is published over here. But looking at it, though they are not the original images, though they are not the original content, but it seems to be like a real website or web page, considering it the color coding and the various content, how the contents are laid out. So when it comes to the best practices, always starts with the low fidelity wireframe. It helps in flexible design and the modification. So you can ask me for every project, so do we create a wireframe? No, it's not that way. But so especially when we are developing something which is of like a complete web-based solution where you have multiple pages and the whole business depends on that web-based application. So that's when you start off with you use the wireframe as a design tool. Present it to the end user who would be providing the feedback. So always start with the low fidelity wireframe with less details, and the structure is the main purpose is to get the acceptance on the structure and the elements that are showing up on the page. Present it to the end user who would be providing the feedback. Keep some portion flexible to make changes at later point of time. And based on the feedback, refine the wireframe and come up with the high fidelity wireframe. Refine the wireframe and come up with the high fidelity wireframe. Make improvements and come up with the complete design of the application. Make improvement and come up with a complete design of the application. So that way, if you look at the best practices, always start with the low fidelity wireframe. So that gives the flexibility to make the changes at later point of time. Present it to the end user who would be providing the feedback. Keep some portion flexible to make the changes at a later point of time. Refine the wireframe and come up with high fidelity wireframe. Make improvement and come up with the complete design of the application. So that's how the wireframes work. When you look at the references, so flickr.com is one website where we can look at the sample wireframes. You can look at the sketches as well, the sample wireframes, high fidelity and low fidelity wireframe. And the tool that we can use to create the wireframes are Mockingbird, Adobe Fireworks, Smart Draw. So these tools can be used to create the wireframes. Even Microsoft Visio also we can use to create the wireframes. Let's just look at the flickr.com for sample wireframes, and we will also create a sample wireframe by using a tool that is presented here. Any questions so far before we move on to look at the sample wireframes? Any questions so far?
No.
Others?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
No questions.
Yeah. All right. So I'm searching for a wireframe here. So I have like launched this website, the flickr.com, so where you see like different types of photos and stuff. You can upload the photos. So there I'm searching for a wireframe. I just put a wireframe and click on search. So you see the sketches here. So this is an example of a sketch. So if you look at here, you have the logo, you have the menu, icons, and products, and newsletter, links, catalog of the items, and so on. So this is an example of a simple sketch. So there are many assets in this portal. So if you go further, so you have the you have this wireframe. So this is considered to be a low fidelity wireframe. It's considered to be a low fidelity wireframe where you have the logo, you have the banner, you have the branding area, local NAV, top stories, whatever. So this one. And if you look at the high fidelity wireframe, so let me search for one example. So this is
Uh,
one more. Yes, please.
yeah, I have just one question. So, the thing is that for the wireframe, we always need to follow this particular template, or we have to model the wireframe as per the customer requirement or customer's desire.
No, there is no template for it, right? So I'm not showing any template here. Okay, there is no
Like,
template. These are just an example. I'm showing this is how this is just a sample one. I'm showing it. So obviously, when we create, we have to create as per the customer needs. So first we need
okay,
to understand what business, like what is the purpose of that website. So why do they need it? And based on their need, we need to understand like what exactly, like what are all the elements that make sense to put it in that website, right? So based on that, we choose the right one.
okay, yeah,
Okay.
got it. Yeah, got
Now
it.
this seems to be a like a training related website. So where you see that almost all of the things are published except the images and stuff. Home, data, research, analysis, themes, policies, news, and events, and skills boost, higher level of qualification, research, new record. So if you see here, one reason why I'm saying this is a high fidelity wireframe is where you see that each of the elements, there is some explanation that has been given on the right hand side. So on the right hand side, you have the explanation for each of the elements presented here. So that's where these details and also your buttons, the links and everything are the original, I mean the final ones, except the image, and even the content also seems to be the final content. So that's where we can consider this as a the final image as the final design of, or at least the high fidelity wireframe. So let's move on to see how we can create a wireframe. So how, by using the tool, how we can create the wireframe. So I'm using the tool like gomockingbird.com. So this tool you can use to create the wireframes. So also I'm opening a website. So actually, in ideal case, based on the need, somehow this is not opening. Okay, I think it is not supporting Internet Explorer. Let me see. Okay, so the moment you open this one, so you get some option like this. Try creating wireframes for free. Try creating wireframes for free. So the moment you click on it, so you see a sample page where we can create the wireframes. So let me just open a website. an existing website. I am not creating the new one completely. Just for referencing sake, how do we use the tool? So for that purpose, we are trying to understand. So this is basically like the HDFC Bank website. And if you see here, so on the topmost part, you have the logo and the name that is presented. So the complete one, we can call it as logo. 25 years. Then you have personal, NRI, SME, wholesale, and agri. And on the right hand side, you have locate us and help. So these are all the navigation buttons to different pages. So in the second line, if you see welcome, and then you have a search bar and you have a login button. Okay, so third line, if you see the changing set of images, and on the right hand side, what are you looking for? And you have different list of product, car loans, the cards, account deposits, loans, EMI, fast tag, and invest, different types of products the bank is offering, and you should be able to select from the drop down based on your initial selection. Apply online, no more. Calculate eligibility or EMI. So, and this is scrolling images, sorry, text, the scrolling text. So wherein like the highlight news or whatever the highlights they want to publish, they can publish out here. There are other things also which we are not going to look into, just for the understanding sake. So we will create a few details which are presented in this one. So now first and foremost thing, so on the top you see the logo of the bank, and which is obviously an image. 25 years, that is also another image. Personal, NRI, SME, wholesale, agri, these are all the navigation buttons to navigation links to different pages. Okay, so and locate us with an image and help with an image. So now so these are all the elements which are already there. I am just selecting all of them and deleting. So I am clearing the page for our usage right now. So this is the space that we can use to create the wireframe. But in order to create, we need to have the elements, right? So we need all the different elements, then only we'll be able to create it. So for that, just give me a moment. Okay, so for that, so I'm clicking on add element. I'm clicking on add element. So with that, we should be able to see the list of elements. On the left hand panel, so you have all the elements. So what are all the elements that you see here? You have the welcome, which is a text, simple text, and the link, and the highlighted ones I can show you. Text area. For example, in the example, we have seen that in low fidelity wireframe, we see an image of a like a image of an online shopping portal, and along with some text that is published, a dummy text. So the dummy text is similar to this one image, and you have a number of buttons here and text input box, and there is a drop down list and date picker and numeric stepper, and then you have the banner ad and search and the various links separated by these columns, something like this, a vertical lines, and you have the radio button, and also you have the check boxes and different types of buttons, button bar and bar chart, and you also have the pie chart, line graph, profile picture, and the various types of symbols, circle, rectangle, and grid, and horizontal scroll bar, vertical scroll bar. As I mentioned, the scrolling of the page to the right hand side or the left hand side, you have horizontal scroll bar and vertical scroll bar to move the web page up and down, and the lines, vertical lines and stuff. So again, another important thing is, so when you want to show some video in your website, you show the image through the video player. You show that as an image to the video player in the wireframe at the level of wireframe. If you would like to show the map of your office location or whatever, or let's say you are dealing with the properties, you are selling the properties and you want to showcase the property location. So that's when you can show the maps, like different maps for different properties and obviously different locations. Then you have the volume slider, so the volume thing, like for YouTube or any other videos, the volume symbol that if you have to represent, so that's how we can represent it. So right arrow, left arrow, mail, like share on Twitter, share on Facebook, and home, the links and stuff. So these are all, and search bar and all these details. So almost all of these things, like for example, if you are comparing a number of websites and trying to see what are all the elements in each website, so ultimately you will identify that there is a common list of elements, not the exhaustive list. You have a common list of elements. That common list of elements that we would be using for creation of the web pages, creation of the web pages. So to start off with, creating the wireframe, so that we have presented here, that we have it here, HDFC Bank website. So on the top we have the logo and stuff. So but if you see the background color, so it's in blue. So let's have that blue background one, but we don't do color coding here. At least I'm just picking up a rectangle. All that what I did is like I click on, so this is a search bar, whatever the element that you would like to have. So you can click on enter the element details and click on search, or you can scroll down and pull it directly. So select the image and pull it here. So that should be fine. So you don't need to do anything. So I'm just picking on rectangle here. Need probably a little bit more space. Okay. All right. So in that rectangle, so we have the first logo and the bank name. So obviously, like we would pick that up. So for that, again another rectangle, or we can probably pick the best one. Yeah, the rectangle. Then we have the logo, so which is obviously an image. So this could, obviously at the initial stages we are going to publish only the image. I may not need this bigger one. Okay. So then we have input text. So some text here, we can put it as HDFC Bank. Resizing is also very much easier here. Okay, HDFC Bank. So then what else you have? On the just beside this one, you have 25 years. That is again another image, placeholder image that we publish here. Okay. So then personal, NRI, SME, wholesale, agri, these are all the different links that we have. So let me select the links. personal, premier, NRI, SME, wholesale, and agri. Personal, premier, personal premier is not there. NRI, SME, wholesale, agri. Okay, personal, NRI, SME, wholesale, and agri. And pull this one. But it just shows that we are in the personal page. And then the next thing is, so we have locate us and help. So an image and with a text, an image again with a text. So probably the image is the smaller one. Locators, and we also have other image. I'm just selecting it. I'm copying the same here. I'm making it as help. Okay. Locators and help. So this is the first line of info. Just have a look at it. Bank logo and the image, personal, NRI, SME, wholesale, and agri. And locators and help. In the second line, you have the welcome, our search bar, and you have a login thing. So again, there is a kind of rectangle with a different color coding, and you have these details. So let me okay. Right, so you have the welcome, which has again search bar and login. Welcome, search bar. So let me choose. I'm choosing this one. The reason being there is already some text so that we can modify it. I change the text color and I'm making it as search. And there is a search image as well. So I'm going to pick this one here, a search image. And then what else we have? We have the login button. If you go here, you have the login button. So the button here, so the button would be the login button. Login button. First, so this is in the second page. Second line. Welcome. Search login. So, all right. So the next thing is that you have changing set of images here. The changing set of images here, and on the right hand side, you have what are you looking for. Select the prototype. Select the product type and select the product. Apply online and no more, etc. So changing set of images pretty much easier. So we don't want to do anything extra. So all that we are going to put a. So for that, first thing, let me. Okay. So I will just put a placeholder image which is extended till here. Okay. So which is extended till here. And also we can basically here I'm not worrying about this thing, the alignment. You can also care about the alignment part as well. Alignment, how things are aligned here and stuff. Then what are you looking for? So then you have the select product type, select product, apply online, and no more. So here I need a rectangle for background thing. Okay. And then what are you looking for? So there is some text. So obviously I'm going to pick up the text here. Let me just. What are you looking for? Select product type, select product. So which are drop down list again. I'm going to pick up the product type. Let me see what is this. Select product type, select product. Select product type. I selected the same. Again, copy pasted it. Select product and apply online. No more. Apply online. No more. Apply online. Okay, no more. So then you have calculate eligibility REMI. So there is an image. There is an image and calculate eligibility REMI. Calculate eligibility REMI. So we have put okay. So this is the thing. Like so we'll stop here. So just that. Yeah. So this is how it is going to look like when we create it. So we can actually do a lot of modifications. If you want to do some color coding here, so let me just want to do a background color coding. Something else. So there are limited ones available. So but you can definitely like pick something else and do it. I mean the you can if you want to make color coding, that's quite possible. Okay. So is it clear so far how we create the wireframes and how we use the tool?
Yes.
Others?
Yes.
Yes, Kiran, but
Yeah.
who is supposed to do the wireframe basically?
So it is basically right when we create documentation. So we use it as part of the documentation. Like how, for example, um, if we don't have an existing product, we are supposed to create a requirement documentation or a web page. So the design, how the screen is going to look like. So that's when we create and present it in a requirement documentation as a design as well as get the approvals. Or if we have already the system and we are making the modification, or we are creating a number of screens, the additional screens or the web pages. So in that case, so if we have already an existing system, we can take the help of development team and ask them to create a mock-up of the screen and give it, because already a system is there. So you can request them to, based on your requirement, they create one and they can give it to you. So you can use it as part of the documentation. So the whole idea is that if you are initially developing a web-based application and there is no product as such, in that case, the UI screen that we create and get for getting the acceptance as well as using as part of the requirement documentation, we create it by using the Mockingbird tool. Mockingbird, not only Mockingbird, any other tool. Okay.
Okay, so again, here the BA and the technology team, everybody's going to sit together and do the
Yeah.
proper
So
coding.
basically, true. So when we are creating the product, but what happens is, like if you are working in a pure waterfall methodology, and when you are creating your document, so the participation of development team is pretty much limited in the initial stages, right?
Yes.
So in that case, the BA has to prepare this kind of screens by
Oh,
using this
okay.
tool. Okay.
Okay.
So if it is like agile and you are having continuous interactions, rather you ask them, boss, I want a screen, something like this. So these are the buttons that I should have. And this is how the design. So based on that, so could you please create one and give to? So based on that, you can take a help from the technology team.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So here another thing, right? So so there is another homework. So let me explain you what you should be doing here. So as part of this one, so what I want you to do is, I want each of you to create a wireframe or web page. Create a web page of your own. Web page of your own. So you can use any tool. Like as I mentioned, you can use the Adobe Fireworks or the Smart Draw tool or Mockingbird and create one web page. That should be fine. The complete web page. Rather this, I have just picked up HDFC Bank and I haven't done completely. Like there is a vertical scroll bar, so you can put the vertical scroll bar also. There are a number of things down here, but not necessary. But there may be, like, based on your understanding, try to make sure you have as many elements as possible, not three, not four, like that. So you make sure element in the sense, this is one element, this complete thing, this is another. So these are the buttons, and again the login is a button, navigation links and search bar. These things we can call it as element. Make sure to have or utilize the space effectively and create a web page of your own. You might be having idea that, like, I want to open my own business and I want to open my own online shopping portal, whatever. So based on your thought, you can go to n number of website, get your thoughts. Just that you create one by using this tool by yourself. So that is one. The second is, I want you to write a brief description of your website. So which website would you like to create? So obviously with regards to the web page, that is one of the pages of your website. So with regards to that website, I want you to create a brief description of your website. Brief description of the website, what that website is all about, and simple maybe a paragraph or a couple of paragraphs. So giving a brief description of the website. And the final thing is, like, let's say in your website, let's say there are 5 different pages, like home, about us, products and services, and contacts, something like that. So 4 or 5 different pages. So I want you to write, like, maybe one liner or two, write about each of the pages, each of the pages in the website. So simple, about us, I would put it as, okay, this particular page is created to present the brief history of the the organization, or the organization and its own business. So it gives you brief history about what is that organization is all about. Obviously your website is linked to some organization, right? So what that organization all about, when was it started, who has started, so some brief history about it. Similarly, homepage highlights what are the products that services that we are selling. Okay, highlights of it. It doesn't give you the complete detail. Product space gives us the various products that we are we are serving or we are selling. So that's how a brief detail about what each of the pages that would be like presented on your web page. Okay, so the whole idea is, one, we should be able to present, like when I ask you the first step, you should be able to create a web page by yourself. So by looking at, get some idea and create by yourself. That is one. Second, when I say brief description of your website, so it basically touch upon your writing skill set in terms of your requirement. How do you write it, how do you put it? So this website is all about so and so activities, or I want to publish this stuff and etc. And write about each of the pages that is in similar line. So why we are creating a number of pages and what is the purpose of it. So similarly, when we write down the documentation also, why each of the pages are needed in the website or web-based application. So that's where this skill, whatever that we are going to write it down, that gets you some experience on that. Okay, is that clear? Any questions?
Yeah, so I'm not getting it. Each page of the website means, do we need to create every pages
No,
of
no,
that?
no, no, don't create it. The creation is just one page, like the way I did. You just
Okay,
create one page. Just a
okay,
brief description, maybe one liner description. So obviously, when you create a web page or a website, you'll have a number of pages, right? You'll have in your mind that, okay, I want to have 5 pages. I want to have 6 different pages in my website. So what are those 5 pages, or what are those 6 pages in a website?
and this
And
page
list
link
down
code,
them.
right?
list down each of them and just give a brief description, maybe 1-liner description or 2 lines. That should be fine. Why, what you would like to showcase in each of the pages. That's the idea. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So with this, I'm going to stop here for today.
Kiran,
We'll
I
catch
have
up.
one thing.
Yeah, please.
Like
Please.
you just give us one more for the case study. So how do we submit that? Do we need to mail you that that case
Yeah, so
study?
you can probably keep it yourself, and I'll let you know so how we can share it. So I will check with the coordinators. If they're fine, I will share with you the email so you can send it to my email ID. Okay.
Okay,
And also, Kiran,
fine.
I thought
Yeah,
of
please.
asking everybody getting the recorded links to their IDs? I am not getting any recordings.
No, even I'm not getting any recording IDs. When I was
Okay.
about
So
no recording.
okay. Yeah. So just get in touch with your coordinator, like whoever it may be, and check and let me know what their response is. So
Sure, I
ideally,
spoke
all the
to
recordings should be
one.
there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
I spoke to
only
Uh,
one today, and she said she will be sending it by tomorrow. If
Okay.
I'm not getting it by tomorrow, because I will not be attending the class tomorrow and day after, so I want to
Okay.
make
Okay.
sure I'm getting the recordings. So I'll
Okay.
just raise a request again, and I'll
Yeah.
wait
Yeah.
for the recordings.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I will also raise with the team. So and we'll see.
Okay. Thank you.
okay.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks. Bye. ఆ రూమ్ లో నుంచి ఆ రూమ్ లో మనకు తెలియకుండా బియ్యం బస్తా అవి ఉంటాయి కదా